On the back of our recent video about the attempt on Trump, the key question that people have had is, why didn't the sniper from the Secret Service take the shot? Well, to cut to the chase, because he didn't want to go to prison for murder. But why is that? Well, contrary to popular belief in movies, the Secret Service, they don't have carte blanche just to shoot anybody suspicious. They are bound by the law. And the law that pertains in this case is an American case called Graham and Connor, or as our American friends would pronounce it, Graham v. Connor. So first of all, if I explain the facts of that case and then how that led to where we are today. Mr. Graham was diabetic and he found himself basically having an insulin reaction. So one of his friends very kindly drove him to a convenience store so he could get something sugary. He actually wanted orange juice. He ran into the convenience store, but there was a huge queue. So he jumped back into his friend's car. His friend was called Burrit, by the way, just I know you like trivia. And they went looking for an alternative source of sweet orange juice. However, some police officers saw this and they thought this seemed a bit suspicious. So they just radioed and said, here's a vehicle driving away that we think might have been involved in an incident. And those officers then went into the shop to see what had happened. The car was stopped by a different police officer, the Mr. Connor. And basically they tried to explain what was going on and said, look, my friend's having a sort of diabetic insulin reaction incident. And he just didn't believe it and sort of, made him get out of the car. But by this stage, he was really having a bad reaction. So of course he was slurring, he wasn't competent. He tried to explain, but the police just weren't having anything of it. And they basically arrested him and he got really badly injured during the arrest. Now by this time, of course, their colleagues had gone into the store and the store had said, no, nothing happened here. Some people came in and went straight out again. But that message, that information did not get back to the other police officers. So Mr. Graham sued for all his injuries. And at first instance, the court said, well, no, the police officer, yes, he got it wrong, but he honestly believed that he was dealing with somebody drunk and cooperative. Because, he said, I've met loads of drunk people and they all slur and, I'm not going to believe people. They come out with all sorts of stories. So I didn't believe he was, his tale. I just could tell he was drunk. However, Mr. Graham appealed and the appellate court came back and said, no, the test is, when it comes to professionals, it's not, are they trying their incompetent best? Is it just their honest, even if unreasonable belief? They are held to the standard of what would a properly trained officer, knowing all the facts at the time that were available to the police, what would they have done? And somebody in this particular case, a proper officer would have said, okay, well, let's just check this out. Would have radioed back to his colleagues, what's happening at the shop, what are we actually arresting them for, what are they supposed to have done. And because there was, no allegation of, any risk or anything violent, they said it was completely over the top and unnecessary. So the Graham and Connor standard became the standard for the police, therefore, thereon. I mean, if you want to be cynical, one way they could get around that, because they said what's the standard of a properly trained officer. If you just made your training really rubbish, then you could lower the standard. And a lot of people have criticised this case as saying, well, it still is too lenient to the police. And although this was a civil claim, this case has been cited many times in criminal cases. I mean, it came up in the Chauvin case, because the idea is that it's not what you believe, it's this objective standard. Now that is to be differentiated between normal sort of self-defense use of force, where it's a two-part test. There's a subjective element and objective element. The subjective element is, what did you honestly, even if mistakenly, believe was the situation, was the threat? And then the test is, assuming on that threat, what would a reasonable person do in response to that threat? But in this particular case, they said, no, both limbs are objective. So this is a case that all police officers are meant to be familiar with. And we know federal employees are, because actually, in uncharacteristically, researching for this video, I actually read the lecture notes that are actually given to federal employees about the use of force. And they highlight this particular case. And they say, also, 2020 hindsight doesn't apply. So let's say, for instance, you use force that's completely over the top on somebody. Let's say Mr. Graham had turned out he actually was the world's most violent, offender. It wouldn't have mattered, because at the time that information wasn't available. It also works the other way. So the fact that actually it turned out, because Graham wanted to put in, well, actually I was a completely, the shop confirmed I hadn't done it. But they said it works both ways. You can't put in, things that weren't known at the time. It's only what the officer absolutely knew at the time. So this is something they're very aware of. And they are taught that basically, when it comes to threat assessment, it's your own judgment. You can't even rely on sort of, what you may have been told. If your supervisor might say something like that, there's a clear threat here, we can see him reaching for something, take the shot. Well, yeah, that might actually assist you, because, it's okay, well, I had no reason to doubt what they were saying and they had eyes on better. But fundamentally, it's your own judgment. And you'll see in the video that the Secret Service sniper sees something and is looking and objecting, and then he actually takes the shot. Now, we know a little bit more about the facts now, and I keep saying, it takes a while for the true facts to come over. But part of the issue here was that people 2 minutes before this happened were already pointing to the guy on the roof and warning the police. And 2 police officers actually went over to that roof. And one lifted the other up, and the other guy was pulling himself up. And actually the first shot was at him. The guy turned around and shot at him. He dropped down. A few people said, why didn't he pull his gun and why didn't he do anything? Well, because he was too busy ducking from being shot at. And I have to say, I don't usually give my personal opinions, but I find that quite a reasonable course of action. And then he turned and started shooting. But, it takes a while for shots to hear shots. So although 45 seconds when you watch it on a video, it seems like a very, very long time. If you're sort of going, is it safe to shoot this guy? Because what if he's just some either protester or Trump supporter? What if he just waves a big banner going, yay, Trump 2024? He's going to look really stupid. And more importantly, he's going to get prosecuted. Because the thing with use of force is, it's all or nothing. It's either entitled to use force, in which case you're completely in the clear, or you weren't, in which case it is murder. There is no halfway house. There's no, well, actually, you made a mistake, so we'll call it manslaughter, but you were acting with the best of intentions. It's all or nothing. And basically, Secret Service people, understandably, don't want to go to prison for murder. So we can look at all the inadequacies in the preparation and, how and the procedures and what went wrong and what lessons can be learned. But fundamentally, and now we're hearing that, as to who actually neutralised the chap, it seems that there may have been other people involved. But really, the reason they were waiting is they needed to make sure that person was a threat. And I know it sounds awful, but the safest way to ensure somebody is a threat is when they start shooting themselves. So there you go. As always, hope you found that vaguely useful, vaguely interesting, vaguely accurate. I've based it on the best information I can find about what actually happened on the ground, and also reading those very useful notes from the feds on that particular case. Where am I today? I'm sat on the cliff top again between Porthtowan in that direction and Lushington Beach in that direction, and I have a special guest with me again, all the way down here in sunny Cornwall, so plug my channel. Yeah, look at this, you see. I get to hang around with all the celebrity YouTubers as well. I was trying to persuade Dan to go down onto Lushington Beach just to so we could get some really, really good video. Although
very tempting.
Yeah, it is the sort of video that you would be showing at an inquest though, because that is not the safest way down. Now I actually look at it in my sort of, I'm going like, why did I ever attempt? Because I've been down there loads of times, and actually when you see it objectively and show it to somebody else, you just realise what a stupid idea that was. But anyway, there you go.
It's one of those things, you get a little bit older and you look back and you think, why was I doing that? I'm reminded of some time I was roller skating when I was younger. I used to do all the half pipes and all sorts of stuff, roller hockey, ice hockey, you name it. And then one day I was going down this wall, which was no wider than one boot. And obviously I was going on one boot. And it was only when I came off the end, safely I might add, that I thought, that could have ended very badly. And now when I look back at it years later, I think, why did I ever do that in the first place? And that's how I now look after future me, future alive me, and decide not to go down this path that's about that one.
What's future you ever? What's future me ever done for me? Yeah, we're also parked in the most ridiculous. I noticed you parked next to the no vehicles beyond this point.
Well, I
sign.
did take a photograph of it to say, this is not just a motor vehicle. This is a Land Rover vehicle. So I might tag them in, see if they'll sponsor us.
Actually, yeah, I've been a Land Rover fan. Series 2, my first ever car. So I'd like to point that out to Land Rover. But there you go. Oh. Yeah, like and subscribe. You're supposed to remind me.
Make sure you're not finished yet always. But make sure you like and subscribe. That's how channels grow. I know some people say, they criticise the like and describe thing, but that's how channels grow. And actually, funnily enough, a few people have said to me just recently that they have been subscribed for a long time and they've just checked and it says that they're not. And they try to, then it gives them an error and all sorts of stuff. So I don't know what YouTube's doing. They're playing some kind of game or something, but make sure you hit it and that's how it grows.
Thank you. And now I'm going to steal some of your footage to stick at the end of this.
Indeed. Thanks for watching.